rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
Welcome to today's edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. As I straighten out my collar, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Listen, Biden is having a problem when it comes to black voters, specifically when it comes to black male voters. That is why I was so frustrated when you had black Republicans coming out against the Florida Department of Education slavery curriculum that is absolutely excellent, and buying into the narrative that Kamala Harris, the vice president, set that is an absolute and utter lie. Listen, black men specifically are not impressed by the left-leaning lurch into the LGBTQ stuff, into the trans stuff. Even when it comes to abortion rights, more black men are concerned about the economy, and believe it or not, they're concerned about policing. So Republicans have an opportunity to take away black voters from Democrats. We need to do it. All right, all this and more on this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please stay tuned for some quick program messaging, and we will be right back. All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today's show is brought to you by MyPillow.com. On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary, with over 80 million MyPillows sold, Mike Lindell and MyPillow, they want to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on their My Pillows. Right now, you can receive a queen size My Pillow for just $19.98. The regular price is $69.98. That's an unbelievable saving. All right, a saving. So if you want to get a king size, all you do is just add $10 more. And also you can peruse the website, mypillow.com, where you will receive deep discounts on all of My Pillow products, such as the bed sheets, the mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, so much more. So anything that you wanted to purchase from My Pillow or thought about purchasing from My Pillow, now is the time to do it, because you'll get deep discounts on all of it. All you have to do, again, go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square at the top of the page, and enter my name, Carl, C-A-R-L. Or if you prefer, give them a call, 800-858-0263, 800-858-0263. All of Mike's products come with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. You cannot beat that with a bat. mypillow.com. Promo code Carl, American jobs, American manufacturing, and a great night's rest. MyPillow.com. Okay, now let me get to the topic at hand. Let me bring you some of the articles or some of the headlines that are in the tip sheet. All right, just so that you know what's going on in today's news. A lot of things are happening. So senators are speaking out against Biden for removing funding from schools that are offering hunting and archery classes and such. I don't even know how that is possible, but it is happening. Senators Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are warning that the Biden administration is clearly misinterpreting a bipartisan law passed last year as it works to withhold funding from schools that offer hunting and archery courses. This is another reason we need to defund the Department of Education, or actually abolish the Department of Education, because you have these people in Washington, D.C. with their partisan politics that'll go around the country and impose their worldview on the rest of the states. And that just simply should not happen. So I would say to that, abolish the Department of Energy. It wasn't one of the biggest headlines that I wanted to get to, but here's one that will impact you significantly. Gas prices have risen 27 cents in just 1 month. And that might continue to happen, guys. U.S. gas prices climbed to their highest point in 9 months on Wednesday, driven by rising oil prices that showed no signs of easing up in the months ahead. The national average stood at $3.80 per gallon. I want you to go back. Here's an example of Bidenomics, all right? Before we get to the topic at hand, here's an example of Bidenomics. So a few years ago, I would top off my tank. Now, I got to be honest, it was a different car, but a bigger car. So I would top it off, fill it up, $45. That was with premium fuel, by the way. I have a smaller car, same engine, but a smaller car, and cost me about $70. All right. It's insane. Get a little better gas mileage because it's smaller and it's lighter, but it is absolutely insane. So you want to know what Bidenomics is? Higher gas prices that affect absolutely everything, because drivers have to drive your food, consumer products, wherever they go, that it costs them more to get there. It costs manufacturers more to make stuff as other drivers and gas and the fossil fuels. They fuel everything. They fuel our economy. So with higher gas prices, it's going to absolutely impact everything, and it's going to impact your everyday life. But this is exactly what they want. They want you to get into these EVs, and eventually what they want to be able to do is to control you. My wife had a good statement the other day. Basically, EVs are a leash on you. They are a leash. They are a leash on freedom. That's what EVs are. They want to be able to control you. If the grid shuts down, hey, just stay home. You don't need to go anywhere anyway. You don't want to pollute the environment, which is absolute bull crap. I'm sure we'll get into some of that. What else is in the news today? Governor DeSantis halts the Disney World's DEI program. I hear a lot of conservatives say, I hear this over and over again, and it is such a big mistake. And it just goes to show that we're not in it to win for the long haul. And it's very disconcerting to me. I got to be honest with you, because I'll hear conservatives say over and over again. Even I was listening to a national show yesterday where it was just the guy was just like, yeah, I know DeSantis just needs to get out of this woke stuff. And listen, I want him to be able to talk about other issues. But here's what you need to understand when it comes to the woke stuff, DEI, CRT, it has impacted everything. You want to know why our military is weak? DEI, CRT. You want to know our weakening, getting weaker? Do you want to know why we have a corrupt DOJ, CRT, DEI, and all of this woke nonsense, this cultural Marxism that has infected every single institution? We've lost every institute. Think about that. Those of us that are so-called conservatives, we've lost every institution, whether it's academia, whether it's entertainment, even churches and synagogues to a degree. We've even lost those. We've lost our military. And so when people say, oh man, we need to stop focusing on DEI or CRT and all this kind of stuff, all that woke stuff, we're just going overboard with that. It just shows me that you don't get it, because all of that other stuff, a corrupt DOJ, all of those are just symptoms of the greater disease, which is cultural Marxism that has infested every single one of our institutions. So kudos to Governor DeSantis that's halting the Disney World's DEI program. Absolutely love that. Listen, illegal crossings skyrocket in July. And I'm telling you what they're trying to do when it comes to illegal immigration is they want to totally end American citizenship. The idea, the concept of American citizenship. We've lost places like Nevada, Colorado, that used to be reliably red. Arizona, as illegal immigrants start to what's the word? Basically, navigate across the country and go into other areas. So it's not just a demographic change. It won't necessarily just be a voting change per se. It's going to be an entire cultural change if we don't stop what's happening at the border. And the numbers have skyrocketed at the border, and they will continue to. And that does not include the gotaways. I think the numbers were up in July to 130,000. That's up from 99,000 just a month prior. All right. And on top of that, the Department of Defense has pulled 1,100 troops from their border. Here's another one that's going to impact you. White House unleashes hundreds of billions of new legislation as Congress breaks for recess. So the Biden administration, they're just going to rule by executive fiat. They're going to use these regulatory agencies, whether it's the Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Department of Education, and they're going to make you pay for their goal or their dream to where you will own nothing and be absolutely happy about it. This is what the Biden administration is doing. They're using these departments, even the DOJ, the Department of Justice, in order to fundamentally transform America. This is why when Republicans get in, and Lord willing they do, they better use their power. They better use their power, and they better use it wisely. I'm sorry. The executive orders, we're finding out executive orders when it comes to Republicans are just a piece of crap. I'm sorry. I love what Trump did for the border, but that wasn't enough. Obviously, look at what's happening at the border. We've got to get legislation. Now, I know Trump has the backbone and the willingness to do it, so we'll see what happens. The same is true with DeSantis, and that's even if Trump can get elected, because what they're aiming to do is try to jail him or convict him so that they can kick him off the ballot in places like Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all the places in which we have to win. I'm just being truthful with you. All right. So that's what the left is up to. That's what they're trying to do. So when we do get back in power, we have to use that power. We can't, pussyfoot around like we do. Oh man, I don't know if this is gonna be politically expedient. Fool, you're not gonna have a country in a year. All right, we don't have time to worry about political expediency. We got to get crap done. It's as simple as that. All right, now I tell you what, I'll peruse the other headlines, but let me get into the topic of the day. This is a very important topic, I believe, because I do believe that we have an opportunity to expand the black vote, and we don't have to pander to blacks by doing it. And I'll explain how. This is from Reuters, so by no means is this a right wing paper, right wing column. All right. So the title is "Some Black Men Lose Faith in Biden, Democrats in 2024." There's a gentleman by the name of Bidenomics. He's a 28-year-old U.S. Army captain from the key voting state of Georgia, it says here. He's among the millions of black voters who helped deliver President Joe Biden the White House in 2020. 3 years later, he is one of the voters who Democrats fear could cost Biden a second term in 2024. Now, I've been saying that it's going to be Gavin Newsom. It's not going to be Biden. And to some extent, I still believe that. But all of the moves that the DOJ has been making to basically send Trump to jail lets me know that Biden, at least for right now, he is hell-bent on running again. He is hell-bent on being the nominee. And he wants to face up against Donald Trump. That whether you believe it or not, what he believes, Biden does, the senile old man, he believes that the person that he could beat is Trump. The problem with that is, as they were beating Trump up with all of these indictments and all this kind of stuff, he's just rising in the polls, and his unfavorables were not cratering in the same way or in the way that they had hoped. Biden's unlikable factors were, in fact, cratering. So that's why I think at this point, they've decided they've got to jail Trump and just remove him completely. So Republicans better have a backup plan just in case. But that is what the left is trying to do. But this is absolutely what Biden is concerned about. He wants to get a second term. But if he's going to win, obviously, ballots matter. Ballot harvesting matters. But we all know that black votes matter big time for the Democrat Party. So this guy, Bidenomics, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's spelled Bahta. Again, a 28-year-old U.S. Army captain is looking or might be looking to vote in a different way. He's from Georgia. He's among the million of black voters, again, that helped Biden to get elected into the White House in 2020. But 3 years later, he is also one of the Democrat voters that the left fears because he could walk away from Biden. And Biden would needs black votes that are crucial in order to get a second term. Here's what he said he's disappointed by, what he sees of the Democrats' party. They're lurched to the left. Listen to this, because we had, again, I mentioned this at the top of the podcast, but we have black Republicans, just the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. We have, politically speaking anyway, black Republicans siding with Kamala Harris and left-wing black radical Marxists on this idea that Florida, and I live in Florida, that our Department of Education came out with some curriculum that says slavery benefited blacks, when it said nothing of the sort. All it said, the curriculum says, it says almost the exact same thing as the old curriculum, except the authors used the word benefited. And all it was is whatever skills they developed for themselves while they were in slavery. And even some of the stuff that they were forced to do, they developed new skills from that. They used those skills because they were resourceful, because they were resilient to create a life of their own post-slavery. So skills that they had developed, skills that they cultivated once they left slavery, they used those skills that they developed in order to create a life for themselves in America. That is the epitome of being resilient. That is the epitome of being resourceful. So for black Republicans to jump onto the bandwagon and criticize this. By the way, the curriculum was written in large part by black scholars. Some that happen to be liberal, that are just truthful, that know their history. Absolutely amazing. That's why we don't pander to that nonsense. I don't care what their reasoning was. We don't pander to it. But listen to this. This is why this guy's disappointed. He's frustrated with the lurch to the left. All right. He believes Democrats are going too far left. He doesn't like their free spending. He says they're full of empty promises. But he's also turned off from far right Republicans. So he said he sees nothing but bad options at the ballot box next year, which means this is a guy that could potentially stay home. Now, I have to kind of push back. Actually, not kind of. I have to push back against this idea that there are far right Republicans. What's far right about the Republican Party? We like the rule of law. We like babies. We like free speech. We like you to keep more of your money. We want a sovereign nation. Meaning we want closed borders. We want a strong military. We want to be energy independent. We want a good education system. I don't know what's far right about the Republican Party, but nonetheless, this is what people believe. And that's the fault of the Republicans. Instead of bashing Florida's curriculum, Byron Donalds, the others, Senator Tim Scott, please don't vote for that guy for president. The fact that he would jump on the bandwagon and try to knock this curriculum just tells you that he would be a social justice warrior, even for Republicans in the White House. And just listen, as senator, great. As a president, no, just far too weak. When you cave to the left that quickly, no, just far too weak. Please don't vote for that guy for president. All right. Even in the primary. Here's a quote from the guy, McKinnon. He says, "What I'm noticing across the Democratic Party right now is there's a lot of pandering to the black community." Huh? What did I tell you? What did I tell you? It seems like they do a lot to try to make it seem like they are the party of young black men or black men as a whole, but they don't back it with anything. They don't follow through. All right. This is actually a lesson for Republicans as well. Now, blacks are the most loyal Democrat constituency. South Carolina, obviously, helped propel Biden to the White House. And then you have whatever you think of the Georgia senatorial races there. A lot of the black voters helped Biden win the Senate in those some of those runoff elections. All right. So here's what many black voters expected in return from Biden's elevation into the White House. Restrictive local voting laws. This stuff has been polled by some groups. I'll give you those names shortly. Police and criminal justice reform, which there's some contradictory information in that. So I will share that in a second. They also student loan debt relief and economic empowerment. So here's a problem. Here's a problem with the Democrat Party. They're not successful if you're economically successful. That's not what they want. That's not part of their, they want to pretend like their people are always racist and people are keeping you down. But the only way that they can keep your vote is if they keep you down. Because if you start making enough money and you're like, dude, I don't want to pay these type of taxes for these fools that are just spending my money foolishly in Washington, D.C. I don't need these people to take care of me. I can be self-sustaining and all this kind of stuff. Unless you have a guilt complex where you keep voting for them, you'll probably walk away from the Democrat Party. And that's exactly what they don't want. So here's the narrative from legacy media. And that is all of these things that blacks claim that they want in these polls: restrictive local voting laws, police and criminal justice reform, student loan debt relief, and economic empowerment. The lefties, the narrative here, even from Reuters, is that the efforts have been blocked by Republicans. So Republicans are making life hard on black people. You see how see how Reuters has this symbiotic relationship with the Democrat Party? That's how it worked. So this is leaving Biden to ask voters to let him finish his job or get a second term. And they're like, I don't think so, because you didn't do what you said you were going to do in the first term, even though the guy has almost destroyed America. Second, on the other hand, McKinnon says Democrats focus on LGBTQ abortion rights leaves voters like McKinnon feeling alienated. All right. So here we are on the right and we're like, oh, man, don't battle LGBTQ. Don't get involved in CRT, DEI. Don't get involved in any of this woke stuff, abortion and stuff like that. Here, this black dude is saying, The Democrat Party is focusing so much on the LGBTQ community. They're focusing so much on abortion that they're forgetting me. You see, what the Democrat Party needs is a coalition of victim groups. And if they start losing that coalition of victim groups, they lose. They can't afford to lose anybody. They have to continue to create coalition victim groups. This is the thing with transgenderism. I don't know who said this, but it was a brilliant point and it's correct. I don't recall who said it. But basically, when it comes to the trans movement, consider the trans movement. They can't reproduce, right? Gay couples or, I don't even know. Trans men, so women transitioning to trans women, men transitioning to women or whatever, they tend not to reproduce or be in those types of relationships. So how do you reproduce? How do you reproduce victim classes? You tell people that it is discriminatory to tell men that they can't be women and vice versa, so that you reproduce. If you don't reproduce trans people, you reproduce voters that'll fight for them. This is exactly what the left does. And this guy is saying, man, I'm kind of sick of this. I'm writing notes as I go. For those of you that might be tuning in, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble. Also, I'm on the Officer Tatum Show tonight and tomorrow. So please check me out there. YouTube and Rumble. Again, please subscribe, rate, and review. That will help out tremendously. We would certainly appreciate that. All things social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me. Here's another quote from this guy, McKinnon, Black U.S. Army captain. Is that correct? U.S. Army captain. Yep. Here's what else he has to say. I'm probably getting turned away from the left just because the Democrats are turning more left in my books. All right. Here's what some polls say. Polls and Reuters interviews show younger black voters and black men of all ages are losing their faith in Democrats, Biden, and perhaps even the political process itself. Just 3 years after the U.S.'s biggest protest for racial justice, and that was the George Floyd riots, the BLM riots. Give me a break. Civil rights in a generation. So just after the BLM riots, all of a sudden blacks are losing faith in the Democrat Party. All right. It goes on to say the vast majority of black voters, including men, are still expected to choose Biden over a Republican. And the question is why? This is an excellent opportunity for Republicans to come in and say, listen, our policies got your back. We're not going to worry about your color, but we can address the conditions because our principles work, whether that's in the ghetto or whether that is in a mansion. Our policies will work for everybody. If you will give us a shot, right? Don't spend more than you make. We want a strong nation. We want lower fuel costs. We want to open up job opportunity by lowering taxes, by not punishing innovators, right? By not giving out corporate welfare and special privileges to all of these major corporations at the expense of small business. We're not going to do that. So there's going to be more businesses in your communities. We're going to make sure that we elevate and lift up policing because so that jobs won't leave places, whether it's Oakland, California, or San Francisco, where young people can go, minorities and all, go to get jobs and start off in the workforce. That's what we're going to do. Our policies work for everybody. That's why I say you don't pander to anybody. Black voters have to turn out in big numbers in crucial cities in order for Democrats to win. Cities like Philadelphia, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Detroit. That's the only way Biden stays in the White House. All right. So they have to be worried about an election of attrition. If black voters don't turn out for Biden in 2024, assuming that he'll be the Democrat nominee, and at this point, it looks like he will. He's absolutely fighting to be. then they're in trouble. Here's a guy by the name of Leland Evans. He's a political campaign manager. He's also running in a write-in candidate for the Nashville City Council, God help us. But anyway, here's what he has to say. Democrats need to understand that there is a growing population, especially with black men, who are reaching the point of being fed up with always being pushed over and looked over. I'll believe that when I see it, but at least the sentiment is there for this particular and upcoming election cycle. He gives the GOP more credit than I do here. He says Democrats' failure to secure widespread student loan relief or legalize marijuana has been disappointing. All right. Evans also said, adding that Republicans' more aggressive approach when they have power means they are, quote, actually getting things done. Man, I don't know what aggressive approach he's talking about when it comes to Republicans, but certainly that's what he believes. Maybe because the left-wing media is just telling them how Republicans just stop everything. Listen to this. Turnout drops. Self-identified black Americans make up 14.2% of the U.S. population, 42.7 million people. That's a 30% jump from 2000. Pew Research shows. I'm actually shocked by that. I expected the numbers to trend downward with abortion, so I was wrong on that. These Americans are 5 years younger than the population as a whole, with an average of 33. Democrats earning their loyalty, they say, is crucial for the party to keep winning places like Pennsylvania, or states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and to recapture districts that are in the South. But they said instead, the opposite is happening. They're losing blacks in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, right? They're losing the South. Look at Florida. Look at Florida. Ron DeSantis won it by 20 points. And in large part, a lot of it was due to education when it came to black voters, but it was black women who stepped up big time and voted for him because of education and school choice. Listen to this. Black voter turnout dropped nearly 10 points between the 2018 versus the 2022 midterms, from 51.7% in 2018 to 42% in 2022. This, according to the Washington Post, by the way. As far as white voter turnout was concerned, it only slipped by 1.5 points between 2018 versus 2022. But that tells you that it was a lot of, when it comes to 2022, I forget to mention this because we had a crappy performance for 2022, not like we had hoped. But here's the thing. I do want to offer you some encouragement. If you recall, more Republican voters showed up to vote in 2022. So the numbers were there. But what Democrats were doing was targeted voting. So they were going into places like Pennsylvania, college campuses. They were getting women real riled up because Roe v. Wade had been overturned, and they would pass out ballots. They would go hunt. They would go chase ballots, in other words. That's why we lost. Targeted voting. Republicans didn't play a part, and unfortunately, we didn't hire Harmeet Dillon. We still have Ronna McDaniel. So we're playing catch up. We should have hired Harmeet Dillon to run the RNC. Black voters have participated in the U.S. presidential elections at higher rates than the national average for over two decades, according to Michael McDonald. He's a politics professor at the University of Florida. He says, and I quote, "Black voter turnout was down across the country in 2022. We saw it in the polls, the surveys, the exit polls, and every way you could measure it." So perhaps that means it was down even for Republicans. So some black voters, however, have defected to the Republican Party. According to HIT Strategies, HIT in all caps, Strategies, it's a public opinion research firm aligned with Democrats, and apparently they constantly survey black voters, black Americans. So 1 in 5 black people under the age of 50 voted Republican in the 2022 midterms, roughly double the number of their elders. So when it came to the younger blacks, overwhelmingly, they voted for they voted for Trump. They voted Republican in the 2022 midterm. All right. So the numbers were pretty good. Black men and women under the age of 50, however, or younger blacks voted Republican. But black men and women under the age of 50 voted Republican in similar numbers. The polls show. What was that? 1 in 5 black people under the age of 50 voted Republican. All right. Okay. Now, also, Trump won 4% more of black voters in 2020 than he did in 2016. Here's a Reuters Ipsos poll conducted July 11th through 17th, and again, by no means a right-wing poll. It found that 18% of Black Americans would pick Trump over Biden in a hypothetical matchup, all right, compared to 46% who favored Biden, including about 1 in 4 Black men, compared to about 1 in 7 Black women. All right, so compared with Black women, Black men were more likely to say they would back a presidential candidate that supported abortion restrictions and increased police funding to fight crime. So at least when it comes to the men that were surveyed, abortion is not on the top of their mind. And they want increased police funding to fight crime. Why? Because they see their homies getting shot in the street. All right. What about economic gains? Democrats are favored by Black voters who value abortion rights. This is what they want most anyway. All right. So Democrats, again, are favored by Black voters who value abortion rights, voting rights, and opposition to racism. So this is exactly why it's so important to knock out CRT and DEI and all of this stuff over the long term. And I can't believe you still have some Republicans. I hear CRT, DEI, all this woke stuff. We need to stop talking about this. Okay, so maybe we win one election just to lose the culture all over again. Wake up, people, for God's sakes. See, cultural Marxism is the disease that we're fighting against. Again, a corrupt DOJ, all of these other institutions, academia, Hollywood, all of these institutions that influence the culture. If you do not fight wokeness, we lose. We lose. And frankly, the more and more I hear Republicans tell me that, or I hear Republicans on national radio even say it, I'm like, yeah. We're going to be getting our butts kicked still because they still don't get it. They still don't get it. Whenever you hear a person say wokeism it's not important to fight, we need to move on. Okay, yeah, you don't get it. You don't get it. You just want to win one election. No, we need to win for a generation at least to take back this country. Not 4 years, 20 years. All right, 20 years. It's a long process, but we got to get started, and we are getting started. We've been fighting back. Now, the margin shrinks, according to this column, when it comes to managing the economy, when it comes to Black voters. So Black voters, again, according to a guy by the name of Terrence Woodbury, he's the chief executive of Hes Strategies. He says when it comes, the margin shrinks when it comes to the managing the economy. So Democrats are favored by Black voters who value, I'm getting confused here, so I'm rereading myself, value abortion rights, voting rights, and opposition to racism. All right, so racism is still alive, right? The Democrats believe, or at least they want their voters to believe. But the economy is an issue for Democrats. Here's who said this. This is what the CEO of the HIT strategy said. When you get to economic issues, economic security, inflation, job security, those 50 and 60 point gaps began to shrink to near parity, where you have young Black folks saying that Republicans are almost as good for them on the economy as Democrats are. Why not make the point that we're better and you can have a better life under our policies, right? Remember what Trump said, what do you have to lose? That's the argument we should continue to make. All right. Julian Silas, here's an example. He's a 25-year-old, a Black investment research analyst from Chicago area. He said many of his friends and family are re-examining their politics and questioning just how much the loyalty of Black Americans to the Democratic Party bettered their lives, particularly their economic standing. I wish he would look at the crime in Chicago as well, because they just hired a worse mayor in Brandon Johnson than even Lori Lightfoot. Here's a quote from him. He says, every 4 years, Democratic candidates talk about increasing Black wealth and closing the gap between Black and white Americans, but, quote, nothing actually really happens, close quote. Silas, he also said, it seems like there's things that they talk about that seem good that I can align with, like student loan debt relief or home ownership and all these different things. But maybe sometimes it doesn't feel like it's moving fast enough. And honestly, that's because this guy is counting on the government instead of being self-sufficient. And this is an opportunity where Republicans can go in and say, listen, this is what you do to buy a house. Make sure you get your credit straight. Make sure you pay your bills. Make sure you start saving little by little by little, so you don't get into something you can't afford. You put down a down payment, get a payment that you can afford. You pay more on the mortgage, as you can afford to do so. Pay that thing down and make more money, investing more in the future, or renting that one out and getting another property. Like, start teaching people these. This is how Republicans can win. Our financial ideas, everything is better. Now, Democrats don't live like that behind closed doors, by the way. The U.S. black unemployment rate has fallen to historic lows under Biden. I don't know if that's true, but hit a 10-year month high in June, driving in large part by black workers leaving the labor market. Black families had a 4.4% of total household wealth in the first quarter of 2023. According to Federal Reserve data, that's up slightly from 4.3% from the beginning of 2020. The Democratic Party has spent considerable time, money, and resources, according to the column, to retain and expand the black vote, including mounting registration drives in battleground states and recruiting black campaign staff. What does this do for the black community? This community is good for the picking. That's why I couldn't stand when the Republicans came out against that plan. And then you got Vice President Kamala Harris, obviously in her position. She says, as we head into the 2024 cycle, the DNC is doubling down on our commitment to engaging black voters with meaningful and sustained investments. That means taking away from other communities to give to the black community, by the way, to make sure they know how President Biden and Vice President Harris have delivered for them. Actually, this is a guy by the name of Tracy King, the DNC's director of outreach communications. So for some right now, that's not enough. And then here's what a guy by the name of Andre Russell had to say about that. He said, I'm kind of stuck with Biden until someone else comes along. These guys are looking for better solutions. And it doesn't have to be a Democrat. It doesn't have to be a Democrat, but we can't pander to blacks. We can't pander to anyone. We have to explain the whys of our position and how they're meaningful for everybody and powerful for everybody. He goes on to say, Andre Russell does, as a society, we definitely have to move past the trope of old white men running everything. And again, that comes back to wokeism. But if you go into communities, if you explain the whys of your policies and how it can make the poorest of the poor rise to the highest of the high, financially speaking, get your spiritual life in order, right? Spiritual life, finances, politics. Faith, family, freedom. Start talking about that, Republicans. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast, all right? I would certainly appreciate that. Also, on all things social media, at the Carl Jackson Show, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.